5:50 a.m. John's alarm doesn't go off. He set it anyway, out of habit. He's been waking up before it for 6 months now. He sits up in the dark and checks his phone before his feet touch the floor. A notification. $63. Dividend deposit. Overnight. While he was asleep. He's a route driver for a beverage distributor. Has been for 9 years. He climbs into his truck at 6:15, the same as always. Nothing about the morning looks different. That's the part nobody tells you. The money doesn't change your kitchen. It changes what's happening quietly underneath it. Rule 1. The first dollar that pays you while you sleep doesn't feel like anything. That's exactly why people miss it. He started at 24. $2,200 saved from 2 years of driving the same 41 stops, skipping the upgrade on his phone, keeping the same truck 2 years past when he wanted a new one. He opened an account on his lunch break in the cab, engine running, a C on, sandwich half-eaten on the dash. He put it all into one fund. Boring, broad, unglamorous. He didn't tell anyone. There was nothing to tell yet. His coworker Deshawn leaned into the cab that afternoon and asked what he was doing. John told him. Deshawn laughed, said he'd rather have the money in his pocket where he could see it. 6 years later, Deshawn is still saying that. John stopped explaining. At $9,000, a dividend hit for the first time that covered his electric bill. He sat in the driveway with the engine off and did the math twice to make sure it was real. It was $71. His bill was $68. He didn't tell his wife that night. He just felt something settle in his chest that he didn't have a word for yet. Rule 2. The number is never impressive at first. What's impressive is that it showed up without you. At $40,000, he told his father, not as a brag. He needed someone to know. They were in the garage, his father under his own truck on a mechanic's creeper, same as he'd been every Saturday for 30 years. John said the number out loud for the first time. His father slid out, wiped his hands on a shop rag and said, "That's good, son. Now go put the creeper back where you found it." That was the whole conversation. John understood, eventually, that this was his father's way of saying he was proud without making it a bigger thing than it needed to be. At $110,000, the dividends covered his truck payment every month without him touching a dollar of his paycheck. He started keeping a second column in a notebook in the glove box. Job income on one side, money income on the other. He'd check it at red lights, at the end of routes, standing in a loading dock waiting for a pallet jack. The gap was closing, and nobody on his route knew it. At $310,000, his manager offered him a promotion. More money, more hours, a company truck with his name on the door. He said no. His manager looked at him like he'd said no to oxygen. John didn't explain that the offer would have paid him less, per hour of his life, than the money already sitting in his account doing nothing every single day. Rule 3. At a certain point, a raise stops being a raise. It becomes a worse trade than the one you already have. At $600,000, the two columns in the glove box notebook crossed. Job income, $58,400. Money income, $61,900. He sat in the cab in an empty parking lot after his last stop and read it 3 times, out loud, to no one. He didn't call anyone. He drove home, and his wife asked how his day was, and he said fine, and it was true, and it was also the biggest lie he'd told her by omission in 9 years of marriage. He kept driving the route anyway. Monday came. He set the alarm again. His father got sick that winter. Nothing dramatic, a knee that finally gave out after 3 decades of concrete floors. John paid for the surgery outright, same day, no financing, no calling the bank. His father found out from the billing office, not from John. He called John that night, quiet on the phone in a way John had never heard from him. "You didn't have to do that." John said, "I know." Neither of them said anything else. They didn't need to. At $900,000, John didn't quit. That surprised people more than the number did. He kept the same route, the same truck, the same 6:15 start. What changed was smaller than anyone expected. He stopped setting the alarm as a requirement and started setting it as a choice. He found out, the way his father had found out on those garage Saturdays 30 years earlier, that the work was never only about the paycheck. Some of it was about having somewhere to be at 6:15 that made sense to him. The following spring, Deshawn's transmission went out on a Tuesday. He didn't have it. John paid for it before Deshawn even finished asking, and never brought it up again. Deshawn still keeps his money where he can see it. John doesn't say anything about that anymore either. Somewhere right now, someone is sitting in a delivery cab on their lunch break with $2,200 to their name, wondering if it's stupid to put all of it into one boring, unglamorous fund. It isn't. The money doesn't announce itself when it starts working. It just quietly shows up one gray morning, years later, as $63 on a phone screen before the alarm even goes off.